So today I want to talk about some of talking points that you could use against Sunni, Muslims, Quranists, you name it. So I'm going to try to structure it in a way that goes to our rights, starting from the pillar. After the first pillar is the shahada. So they will say that saying Muhammad Rasulullah is okay because it's affirming Muhammad as a messenger of God. It is not delineating him separate to the other prophets, which is against the commandment in Surah Baqarah, which is to not draw a distinction between the prophets. Now, some of the responses you could use for this is that in the Quran, there is mentioning of La ilaha illallah 49 times, almost 50. And in each instance, it is La ilaha illallah. So the most powerful one that we use is when we say to Shahidullahu annahu la ilaha illallah wal malaikatu wal ulul ilm. The shahada of God is there is no God but God, and of the angels and of the people of knowledge. So if you were of the people of knowledge, you would say La ilaha illallah. And every other instance of this shahada is La ilaha illallah. In Sura Muhammad 47:19, isn't that number? It's La ilaha illallah. Fa'lamu annahu la ilaha illallah. This is Muhammad being told, you shall know that there is no God but God. Fastaghfir li dhanbika, and ask forgiveness of your sin, and of the believing men and of the believing women. God knows your destiny and your final destination. So this verse is clear. It attached 2 points. One, the shahada that Muhammad received was La ilaha illallah, and he was also told to ask forgiveness for his sins. And a lot of Sunnis will tell you that Muhammad was ma'soom, he was protected from sins, he was infallible. But this verse itself proves that he wasn't, because God commanded him to ask forgiveness for his sin. Fastaghfir li dhanbika, which is your sins. Ask forgiveness for your sin. And then for the believing men and women. So the only other version that the shahada exists of Muhammad Rasulullah is the shahada of the hypocrite. This is the only instance it appears in the Quran. It's in 63:1, I believe. And the verse goes, the hypocrites will go to Muhammad and say, we bear witness that you are a messenger of God. God then responds, God bears witness that they are liars. And the reason for that is that in the Quran, the shahada is used specifically for something you witness, right? Imagine a policeman came knocking at your door and said, there was an accident outside and there was some fatalities or some people got injured. Can you give a testimony to the event? Your response would be, I wasn't there, I didn't see, right? But here the Muslims insist on saying that the shahada, which is something you witness, something you testify to, is something they witness, which is untrue. You can say, I believe Muhammad is the messenger of God. But God is clarifying in this verse that even the hypocrites are condemned. God is bearing witness that they are liars. Why are they lying when they're saying, we bear witness that you are a messenger of God? Because they didn't witness him being appointed the messengership. And this is the only instance in the entire Quran Muhammad Rasulullah appears. So this is a strong argument where you say to them, the first thing is, every single time the shahada in the Quran is La ilaha illallah. Not an instance ever in the Quran where God says Muhammad Rasulullah. Never in that equation. And then you can hit them with 39:45. When God alone is mentioned, zikr, the hearts of those who disbelieve, they shrink to the version. So you say to them, why is it that when I mention God alone, your heart shrinks? The response will be, oh, it's so bad. I'm not shrinking, I'm happy with that shahada, but I'm just affirming, delineating my religion, the Christians and the Jews. Because if I didn't say this, someone could see me and say, oh, you're a Christian. This is untrue. If you were a Christian, let's be real, they don't have a shahada. Their belief is that, I would say 90% of them, is that if you believe Christ died for your sins, you will be saved. The Jews believe that there is another Messiah to come, right? The Davidic Messiah. So their belief system is entirely false. And the other problem is, we were commanded, and this is addressing the second challenge of the pillar, when they say, how do you pray? We were commanded, Muhammad was commanded to follow the religion of Abraham. In 16:1-3, God says to Muhammad, ثُمَّ أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ أَنِ اتَّبِعْ مِلَّةَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ حَنِيفًا وَمَا كَانَ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. We have inspired to you, you being Muhammad, that you shall follow the religion of Abraham. Millat al-Ibrahim, Hanifa is monotheism. He was never an idol worshipper. So it's clear that this usage of وَمَا كَانَ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ is never applied to Muhammad. So when they say, how do you pray? You respond with, this is an inheritance by God. God gave this instruction to Abraham, to his descendants, on how to pray. وَجَعَلْنَاهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَهْدِينَ بِأَمْرِنَا وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ أَنِ اتَّبِعْ مِلَّةَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ حَنِيفًا. We made them imams of the religion, 21:73. Then we taught them how to commit righteousness, fi'l al-khayrat, and وَإِقَامَ الصَّلَاةِ, how to establish prayer, وَإِيتَاءَ الزَّكَاةِ, how to pay zakat. And to us they were devout servants, they were obedient. So God is clarifying in the Quran, this is in 21:73, that they were taught the rights of our religion. The difference is the Fatiha. When Abraham prayed, he had the Abrahamic Fatiha. When Muhammad came, the fifth revelation is Surah Fatiha. This came after Surah Al-Mudaththir, which is significant. And so that's the only replacement. The Fatiha changed from Abrahamic Fatiha to the Quranic Fatiha. So you don't need to know how to sit. You don't need to know how to do jumping jack. For someone else has shown you. Every single person that has learned how to pray, learned through inheritance. It's an inherited practice. And even if you were to write down thousands of hadith compiled to purport this idea that it records and explains how to do the prayer, I guarantee you it doesn't. I've read this in Surah, in Sahih Muslim. Book 4 of Sahih Muslim is titled As-Salat. It's to pray. And if you read those hadiths, nonsense, absolute nonsense. The closest hadith that explains the entirety of the prayer is in Sunan Abi Dawud 730. And in this narration, the niyah is not mentioned. There are 6 rak'ats of prayer. The Fatiha isn't mentioned. The tashahud, the tahiyat isn't mentioned. And so you see that the entire proliferation of the hadith leads to one thing, which is that it teaches you nothing. If you didn't already know how to pray, you open the book of hadith, you open 1,000 book of hadiths, your prayer will be entirely different to the person that prays today. If you were trapped in a jungle, in an island, and I landed you with book of hadiths and you read them all, your prayer will be entirely different because it wasn't taught to you. And it's the same. This is something called, I don't want to get into it, but it's kind of like, there's a theory called morphic resonance, which is that a lot of what we know and how we act is something that nature is controlling. It's if, for example, this is a study that they did where you would crystallize something in a lab in China, and the same thing that is being crystallized, a protein or a solution in another state, would crystallize quicker, as if they were talking to each other. And it's the same with like birds. A while ago, I think with crows or certain birds, they would like peck into the milk as the deliverer would come, and then they would like obviously get the milk from that. And then they started sealing it, right? But that started happening all around the world from that instance. So there's kind of like this translated knowledge, because God is translating that information to us. And if everyone here tries to remember how they prayed, I learned from watching some books, then kind of like carefully watching people as they pray, going along, and then that's how I fine-tuned it over time. So the prayer is not described in the Quran. Sorry, the method of prayer is not described in the Quran. But all 5 prayers are in the Quran. These are, some of the Qurans will say that it's only 3 prayers. This is untrue. In 11:114, God says, pray at both ends of the day and at night. So that's 3 already. One end of the day is Fajr, and there's no prayer between Fajr and Zuhur. And the other end of the day, you could include Maghrib and Asr, but let's say I say it doesn't include Asr, that's Maghrib. And then at night, that's Isha. In 24:58, Salatul Wusta is, sorry, that's 2 2238 in Salat al-Wusta. 2458 talks about Zuhur. Fajr is mentioned in this verse and Isha directly. And in 1778, Zuhur is mentioned. So all those verses combined, you have 2458, which mentions by name Fajr and Isha. In 1778, God says, when the sun declines from the highest point, mentioned by name. That's 3 now. Wusta in 2238, between Maghrib and Zuhur, also there. It's called Salat al-Wusta. And then you've got Maghribs at the end of the day. And then you've got Isha, which was already pre-mentioned. So all 5 exist in the Quran, but the methodology isn't prescribed. So if a Quranist says, I pray 3 times a day, they're wrong. The Quran prescribes these periods. In 243, God says, bow with those who bow. So it's expected that you know, right? If I say to you, give me 5 push-ups, you wouldn't turn back to me which hadith says how I'm going to do a push-up. I'm expecting you to know how to do a push-up. This is why God gives the command as if it was a known thing, because it was a known thing. To will Allah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. Praise be to God, Lord of the universe. I bear witness that there is no God but God. To clarify, we did witness God. In 7172, God summoned all of the descendants of Adam. And he said, Alastu bi Rabbikum, am I not your Lord? And we all bore witness. So we have physically seen God, all of us. And everyone to ever be born also saw God. This is why it's appropriate to say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. I saw God. You saw God. And this gave us the fitrah, or the innate knowledge and understanding of serving one God. You could be trapped in a jungle, and somehow or other you would sense that all of this must be sourced from one divine creator. So the shahada is the big pillar to be challenged. And the main thing that you want to do is make them understand that the Quran is not an omission. Quran is very descriptive. And one of the most powerful verses that we use a lot is in 6114. أَفَغَيْرَ اللَّهُ أَبْتَغِي حَكَمًا. Shall I seek other than God as a source of law? And it continues, وَهُوَ الَّذِي أَنزَلَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْكِتَابَ مُفَصَّلًا. When He has revealed to you this book, fully detailed, مُفَصَّلًا. And this is used many times in the Quran. This fussilat is clearly detailed. And so if you challenge this and you say, I need the hadith, for example, then you're basically saying that God did not describe this book fully detailed. You're basically saying, I'm taking a law outside of the Quran. Now the difference, what some of them might say, I'm not taking a law outside the Quran. I'm only following what the Prophet used to do. I'm just emulating him. This is a form of idolatry. Because how the Prophet had his beard, his idiosyncrasies, how he cut his hair, whether he wore a topi when he prayed, all these other things are idolization of the Arab culture. And what the Arabs want you to believe is that they are the superior descendant. And if you read some of the exegesis in their history, one is by Ibn Sa'd, Tabakat al-Kubra. It talks about how the Arabs are a specifically chosen community by God. This is why Muhammad was chosen from the Arabs, and Muhammad was from a specific pure lineage tracing back to, I think it's Ishmael, and also from the very first child, if you remember Abel and Cain. Cain killed Abel, that's the one. Abel was the younger brother. And the belief is that every single corrupt disbeliever, for the Muslims nowadays, they will consider you a disbeliever. They believe you descended from Cain. And all the good ones descended from Abel, or the subsequent replacement, I can't remember his name, not Sean, some other name. So to go back to the pillar, you've got the first one is the shahada, challenged. The shahada, according to the Quran, is only, there's no God but God. The second part is the prayer. And the prayer is something we inherited from Abraham. The third part is the siyam, how to fast. And you can tell that they don't know anything about the Quran. Because in 2:184, God says, fasting has been decreed for you for a few number of days, For those of you who can do so, but with difficulty, then a few number of different days. Sorry, if you're ill or traveling, a few number of different days. If you can do so, but with difficulty, then a feeding of the poor. One poor person. This is another thing that Code 19 does, is it confirms the correct scripture. There are more than 28, it's like 40 plus qira'ats, they call them, mushafs. These are the variants in the Quran. And some of the variants, in the Warsh variant, for example, it says you shall feed masakin, poor people. So if I were following the Quran from the Warsh perspective, I would have to feed not one person, but 3 or more, which is very confusing. But the one that Rashad confirmed to us is the one that God protected, and through Code 19 they found the different errors in the Quran, bastatan, nun, waw, nun, and obviously the addition of the 2 false verses. We know that it's miskeen, one poor person. Now a lot of Sunnis will come here and they will say, no, if you're pregnant you shouldn't pray. If you're on your period, sorry, you shouldn't fast. If you're on your period, you shouldn't fast. And they create laws, left, right and center. As if they're handing out candy at a candy shop, right? They have no fear of God. Because God is stating that this book is fully detailed. And they're saying, nah, I got this. I've got more laws to add on to you. So they have made a gross error by adding to the religion. And God made it clear, if you read between 184 to 187, the entirety of your fasting is entirely made clear. Let's say you're pregnant and you can't fast because it's difficult or you're worried about the child. God gave you the provision there. If you can do so, but with difficulty, feed a poor person. Now, if you can't feed a poor person because you can't afford it, you're the poor person. So it's already exempted for you. And in the same part of the verse, a lot of people used to ask me, what happens if I'm in the North Pole? Right? How do I fast when the sun is 23 hours, for example? You might qualify under the hardship. The other element is God says, you shall fast when the white thread of light is distinct from the black thread of night. And you shall observe the moon. So the problem is this. If I'm in an environment where it's only night, then all I can see is the moon. The white thread of light never becomes distinct from the white thread of the black thread of night. So fasting technically never begins for me. And the reverse is true. If all I see is sunlight, then the black thread of night never touched it. And worst case scenario, it's 23 hours for giving you the clarity that if you can't do it, feed a poor person. But it is better for you if you do it. If only you knew. God is making the religion easy for you. He says this. Because for God, what He's trying to do is purify you through simple actions that you might do. Imagine I say to my son, if you finish these 2 pages of homework, we're going to go have, I don't know, McDonald's, or I'm going to buy you an iPad, something lavish like that, right? God is saying, if only you pray, if only you fast, if only you commit your zakat, if only you commit your hajj, if you do these basic, simple rites, I will pardon you. I will purify you completely. You were a rebel. You defied God. Every single one of us believed that Satan had a point. God didn't create an entire universe for fun and games. This is a serious test. And God requests you to do these simple things. Do not associate a partner to Him. Pray 5 times a day. This is for your benefit. God is giving you the gift, like those gold coins. If you don't want to collect them, this is on you. God is then giving you a commandment on how to fast, pay the zakat, and then do the hajj if you can. This is equivalent to me saying to my son, if you finish these 2 pages of homework, I will give you an entire universe of happiness, paradise. Because God clarifies in the Quran that they will have in it, they will have whatever they desire. And with us, there is even more. So imagine everything you've ever wanted in this life, everything. Let's say you wanted to climb the highest ranks of honor, of achievement, everything. And you're venerated, you're adored, you're loved, you're rich, you're handsome, you're powerful, you're revered, you trust and absolutely pious to God. Everything you've ever wanted. God is saying you will get that, and with Him there is even more. There's things we don't even know we want that God can grant with ease. So the third challenge is the zakat. And the zakat is a simple one, because I think it's 6:141. God says, pay the zakat on the day of harvest. And it's very clear, this is the day of harvest. Not every year, potentially not every month, every quarter, every 6 months, whatever. Day of harvest. We don't harvest fruits anymore. Some people do. So you pay it, and Rashad clarifies this verse. At most, if your sum is too meager, let's say per week, and you earn weekly, you add it up to the month, you give it in advance, because you do not want to be in debt when it comes to zakat, because this is not your money. This is money that God is using to purify you. It comes back to the same point, which is that what you do relative to your sin is nothing. Absolutely nothing. You wake up to pray, you think this is a hardship, but God is purifying you. And there's one verse in the Quran, and it's the only verse in the Quran, where God assigns the dual attribute of omnipotence, qadar, and afu, pardoner. So God repeats in the Quran repeatedly, Ghafurur Rahim, forgiver, merciful. Ghafurur Rahim, forgiver, merciful. But when he uses the word qadar, over all things, God is qadirun, he is omnipotent. Never, almost never, another attribute is associated to that, except afu. Afu is pardon. Now it's the same as you coming to me, you've hurt me, you've slighted me in some way, and I'm saying to you, I forgive you. That's different. It's kind of like, I forgive you, but I remember, you hurt me. Pardoning is as if you never committed the sin to begin with. So God is highlighting that this act of pardoning a sinner, a rebel, a criminal, requires immense power, immense mercy. And God can do so. And he will do so. And the cost for you is prayer, is fasting, is speaking the truth, is being kind, paying your alms. And it's the haqqul ma'loom, the known amount. This is some of the Quranists will challenge. How do you know it's 2.5%? It's a known amount. It's some of the things we inherited from Abraham. No one ever doubted it was 2.5%. If you look at old dictionaries in the Arabic, 2.5% is the literal definition of zakat.
Wow.
Literally what it means. And if you studied Six Sigma, I don't know if you ever studied Six Sigma, 2.5% is the highest level of percentile for the poor. So there's this theory of distribution of population. For example, the people in the middle of the population, the people that, like us, we earn X amount of money, we're in the 68% of the population, i.e. 68% of people make the kind of money that we make. And then you step into the next percentile, it increases in difficulty. It's like geniuses or those who are extremely wealthy. The stage between each difference is significant. And at the very last stage is 2.5% of the population. This is a mathematical distribution where the most rich people, the ones that own governments, own the color yellow, whatever, they are at the 2.5%, and they are reverse mirrored by the most poor people, 2.5%. This is a symmetrical graph. So even the 2.5% has a wisdom to it, why that's relevant. And what they failed to realize as well, zakat. Zakat wasn't something that you give to a charity, your masjid, or for them to distribute. No, God gives you a command to distribute in a specific order. This is in Surah Baqarah. Your family first. It could be your mom, it could be your dad, it could be your brother, it could be your sister. Then the relatives, then the orphans, then the wayfarer, and finally the needy. And what God is clarifying is that this religion is meant to purify and have a manifest effect, like basically a dropping of a droplet, and you see the waves trickling forward, right? I can't affect what's happening in Kazakhstan. I might give the money to my masjid, but when I go out the door, I just kick the guy inside that might be poor and needy, right? Thinking that I'm righteous. So God is wanting you to clarify and purify your earnings in a specific order. Rashad caught that, right? Of course he did. He's a messenger of God. So that's the shahada clarified, the prayer clarified, inherited by from Ibrahim. The siyam clarified that they failed to do their siyam properly. The zakat clarified they're not doing it 11 times a year, and they're not doing it in the right sequence of of events as per the Quran's definition. And the fifth one is Hajj. They also make this mistake. My brother recently went to Hajj and it broke my heart that he went to Medina, Masjid Nabawi. Took a picture, went like, look at how amazing this is. It was a golden door. Right next to Allah is Muhammad. Same font, same size, same distance from the ground. This is gross blasphemy. They adore the Prophet more than they should adore God and venerate God alone. So it's heartbreaking. But these are some of the tools that you can use to clarify that their religion is corrupt. Not a single rite of their religion they practice correctly. Not one. They don't pray in a moderate tone. They don't even pray correctly. They call upon the Prophet during their prayer. Assalamu alayka ayyuhan nabi. Peace be upon you, O Prophet, as if he's right here. This is forbidden in the Quran. 9108 and 7218. 9108 says, Masjid, you should pray only focuses on God alone. 7218 says, when you pray, you shall mention God alone, no one else. And they fail. Aqimu salat.